One Piece chapter 968. So this is another great chapter, and of course, a whole bunch of new reveals in this one that's just been part of the course with this flashback so far. And I suppose that we're definitely coming towards the end of it as well. I would say, like, after this point, there's maybe only like 4, maybe 5 chapters left, and then I guess we're going to go into Act 4 of Wano, possibly. But there's a few things that we need to talk about, so let's get into it. So we're coming to the aftermath of the Roger pirates finding Laugh-Tale and all of the truth that came with it. And we see them, like, reading the newspaper, and they're discovering a few things here. So first of all, they're like, oh, now it makes sense that the world government doesn't want everybody to know that my name is Gold D. Roger. And that's why they refer to me as Gold Roger, since, you know, they found out the truth about the Void Century and everything once they got to Laugh-Tale. You know, the whole thing about how the D's were trying to overcome the world nobles, who are basically just the tyrants of humanity. So the D was like the saviors, and they just kind of want to bury the fact that that happened and that who the D's are. So that makes sense. But also another thing that always kind of confused me as to why did the world government / the Marines allow like Garp and Jaguar to be a part of them if they are in fact out and open D's? It's just a little confusing, but I'm sure we'll get clarification on that in the future. So another thing is that we're finding out like the name One Piece, where that came from, and apparently it was just a fan term, like fan within the world, like everybody referring to Roger's treasure. They called it the One Piece because, as far as I know, I don't think he ever really said the One Piece himself, and that's getting clarification here. What he says, I mean, there's multiple translations of it. Like when he's on the execution platform, he says like, "I left it all in one place," or I left it all in that place, whatever. He doesn't say One Piece. So this is like what everyone is calling his treasures and everything, the One Piece. So it's like wasn't officially coined by him. But also it's like we're kind of figuring out why he did this, and it's giving everyone an incentive to go to Laugh-Tale to find the quote-unquote treasure, because I'm sure wherever he put it was like right with the poneglyphs, which I assume are the poneglyphs that have all of the information about the Void Century or whatever, because he wants everyone, whoever goes there, whoever's strong enough to make it there, to, like, you know, probably be incentivized by the treasure, but then also they're gonna, you know, by proxy find out the truth about everything, and then hopefully they'll be able to do something about it. There's so much to talk about with that. This is like all, of course, endgame One Piece stuff. I want to make a video entirely dedicated to this subject. Everybody's talked about it, and then unfortunately we see the Roger pirates come to an end as he disbands them because, you know, he's about to die soon, so he's got to kind of like wrap things up with the rest of his life. He's got to, like, you know, cross off the rest of his bucket list or whatever loose ends he has to tie up, I suppose. So he gets dropped off at this unknown island that supposedly has no Marines around there. And then he tells everyone to just, like, disband. Like, he doesn't want Rayleigh or Scopper or whoever just to become the new captain. He just doesn't want the Roger Pirates to be a thing anymore. And that totally makes sense because they're just going to be the target of, like, other pirates or the Marines in general. So he's kind of just saving them in that aspect. And then he says that he's going to meet up with Whitebeard. And I guess that brings us to that flashback that we saw of Whitebeard and Roger, like, talking over sake when he's like, hey, I know what D means. Do you want to know? And all that stuff. So that's leading to that. That's pretty cool. And then another thing that we're seeing here is that Oden has discovered why Wano is isolated. Now, I think this might have been revealed in the previous chapter, or it's just being clarified here that he knows the truth about Wano and, you know, why it was isolated to this day. But then another super interesting thing is that he says until the day Joy Boy reappears, they must open Wano's borders. So I guess they definitely discovered that at Laugh-Tale because, you know, we know Joy Boy was the original dude who set up everything there. So I guess Joy Boy, I mean, we all speculated this, and for sure it's pretty much almost confirmed at this point that he was probably like the original D. Or maybe he was just like the mascot for the D's. But I suppose that Joy Boy kind of went on like a similar run journey that like Roger and Luffy has gone on. Like he went all around the Grand Line, like just helping people out. But maybe he just couldn't like seal all of the deals at that point. So he just set it up and then allowed future generations to like fix everything for him. You know, such as like we found out that he went to Fishman Island and he was trying to help them, but he couldn't get the job done. So that's why we get the apology poneglyph. And now it seems like he's also went to Wano, and he was trying to liberate them and open their borders, but I guess he couldn't get that done. Joy Boy just had a lot on his plate. He could only do so much. We can also assume that he was like heavily targeted and probably always being tracked by the world nobles and whoever powerful dudes they had at that time. So he was like, okay, you know what? I'll just have whoever 800 years in the future take care of any of my unfinished side quests at this point. But I think that's pretty cool. So Joy Boy, went to Wano at some point, and it's isolated for a reason. I definitely assume that the isolation has to do something with the Void Century. Maybe Wano knew too much, and they isolated themselves so that the world nobles wouldn't take too much interest in them. Maybe they didn't want to, commit mass genocide by isolating themselves, like they saved themselves from that or something. I mean, it definitely has something to do with that. I mean, I would be really surprised if it doesn't have something to do with the Void Century and the world nobles and the D's and all that stuff. So then Oden returns to Wano for good this time, and we already saw that it had completely changed when he stopped there earlier to drop Toki off, and Toki apparently was maintaining things in Wano in his absence. But it's also confirmed at this point that Orochi is already the Shogun, and that Kaido is already backing him. So they already have all of the control. And the Scabbards are barely staying together at this point. And another interesting thing that we're finding out with the Scabbards is that Ashura Doji and Denjiro are split. So Ashura Doji, he goes on to control the bandits in the area. He kind of gets get them all under one flag under him. We kind of see him doing that to this day when we encounter him in the Wano arc. But then Denjiro, so I think this is the most interesting thing. It's revealed that Denjiro went off lending people money around Wano. So that sounds interesting, right? I mean, that sounds familiar because that's what the Witching Hour boy does. Basically the Robin Hood thing. So I guess this pretty much confirms that Denjiro is in fact the Witching Hour boy, which means that it's very likely that Kyoshiro is the Witching Hour boy. And that kind of makes sense too, because I mean, we always go back to the anime Wano intro, basically spoiling that, Denjiro and Kyoshiro are one and the same. But also, Kyoshiro is, in control of the Yakuza, and we know that he's tied to a lot of money. He extorts businesses. He's one of the most wealthiest people in Wano. So I guess that's why he accumulates all of that wealth, just so he can give it back to the poor. So he could be the Witching Hour boy. And then, of course, he's so super powerful and skilled that he's able to get away with it. So then Oden finds out while he was gone that Orochi's just been doing scumbaggery along with Kaido. He's killing people in front of the factories who refuse to work and everything. And then the Scabbards went after him. But then while that was happening, Orochi sent goons to go execute Momo. While he was gone. But then while that happened, Kawamatsu and Inarashi stayed to protect him, and they were able to successfully fend them off. But Toki also got shot in the thigh or something trying to protect Momo. So, once Oden finds this out, he gets crazy pissed, and he just storms off, goes to the capital, and just slays everyone on his way to Orochi. It's so cool just seeing that. I can't wait to see how this plays out in the anime. And then he finally starts stalking down Orochi with 2 swords drawn. This is just such an awesome moment. And Orochi obviously is about to crap his pants in fear of Oden. And he's like, oh my god, this guy is insane. I forgot. And he's like, hey, if you kill me, Kaido's going to get pissed and then think about what'll happen. And he's like, I'll think about it after I'm done killing you, or whatever he says. And then he's like, oh my god, this guy's insane. So I think we might get Kaido versus Oden in the next chapter, possibly. Maybe Kaido comes out to save Orochi. It's really unclear if Kaido is currently at Wano at this point. But another thing that we have to remember is that I'm not sure if enough time has elapsed for Oden to just straight up be executed at this point. I think there's going to be another 4 years, maybe something like that, until that happens. So maybe we get multiple fights between Kaido and Oden, or something happens, or maybe they go into hiding, or maybe they just hold Oden for a long time. They hold him captive and they keep torturing him or something, because it was revealed in Zou, I'm pretty sure, that Kaido was, or at least the official cause of his execution was because he refused to reveal the details of Laugh Tale and One Piece and all of that stuff. So maybe that's going to be retconned. I don't think so. Oda doesn't typically do stuff like that. So I'm sure it'll eventually get to that point. But we might see like multiple clashes between them, which would be pretty cool. know that he at least hurts Kaido. Like, he gives him that scar, so not sure what happens here, but I think there might be like a time skip eventually or something like that, which leads to his execution with Oden selflessly giving himself up to save the others. That's why he's ultimately killed, and we could assume that he's like boiled alive because that's the way it's implied, but we'll see what happens. Great chapter. I can't wait for the next one. Let me know what you thought about this one in the comments, and if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day, and I'll see you